Back when we did the video about how Amy and Rory's relationship is toxic in Asylum of the Daleks, I received some comments along the lines of just because it's bad in one episode doesn't mean their relationship is all bad. And I mean, for one, I never said it did. But actually, the more I think about it, Amy and Rory have always had a toxic relationship in Doctor Who. Let's not forget how that one time Amy attempted suicide because she couldn't bear to live without Rory 2 episodes after cheating on him. Oh yeah, we're doing that. Now, I understand why Amy's choice needs to exist. When you end an episode like Moffat did with Flesh and Stone, you need to deal with the fallout of that, which Vampires of Venice completely glossed over. As mentioned previously, there are some mitigating circumstances, if you like, such as Amy's childhood imaginary friend and handsome dashing hero stealing her away in a time machine on her wedding night, and there's the fact that she's just been through a very traumatic experience that almost resulted in her being killed. But you still can't shy away from the fact that she essentially cheated on her fiancé by attempting to sleep with the Doctor, and there has to be consequences for that. Unless you're Torchwood. Incidentally, the Doctor isn't entirely blameless in this either, and the way the episode handles that side of things is generally executed well. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. So the way that writer Simon Nye deals with the fallout on Amy and Rory's side is by presenting Amy with 2 realities to choose from, one of which is supposedly real. One of these is travelling in the TARDIS, and the other is the kind of boring life she fears having once she commits to marriage, and so she must effectively choose between life with Rory and life with the Doctor. All very neat on a thematic level, and for the most part it works. That is until Rory gets killed, prompting Amy to then kill herself and her unborn baby. We'll get onto that in just a moment, because she apparently can't bear to live in a reality where Rory no longer exists. Not only is it made explicitly clear later on that Amy had no idea which reality was fake, essentially making it a 50-50 chance she'd be dead, but the episode treats this disturbing fact as somehow sappy and romantic, which is about as tone-deaf as Moffat thinking that domestic violence is funny. If Rory had any sense, instead of kissing Amy back, he'd be dragging her, kicking and screaming, to the nearest hospital, as that is the only appropriate reaction here. Okay, so it's not exactly the same as suicide, as Amy didn't know for certain she would die, and perhaps I'd be more lenient if it wasn't for the fact that she's also taking this gamble with her unborn child. Yeah, I'd like to think that wherever you stand on the whole subject of abortion, you can see why this is problematic. We're not talking about an embryo here. That's a fully formed, sentient living being inside of Amy, at least as far as she is aware. And the strangest thing about all of this is there was no need, from a writing standpoint, for her to be this heavily pregnant. You could remove that element entirely and nothing would significantly change. It still wouldn't alter the fact that what Amy is doing is not healthy, but it would take some of the disturbing edge off it. And it might have even been palatable if the episode had leaned more towards a surreal tone and taken full advantage of the fact that the story takes place entirely in a dream state, where real-world logic and consequences don't necessarily apply. But instead of that, we have all of our characters thinking clearly and behaving just like they normally would in any other episode, while constantly stating how real everything feels, right up until the moment where Rory dies. Now, for everything I've just said about this story being tone-deaf, I think I do get what Amy's choice is going for and why it might appeal to some. Melodrama in relationships can be enticing, and I'd even go as far as to say stories about lovers who are obsessed with one another and who would go to the end of the universe and die just to be together do have a place. If this were some lowbrow, steamy, erotic romance novel, I'd likely give it a pass. But the thing is, those sort of values don't translate into the real world. What makes a healthy relationship in reality is not about how far you would go to be with each other or how passionately and deeply you love each other. It's about whether or not you are good for one another. And what Doctor Who shows us repeatedly is Amy and Rory are not good for one another. They're cripplingly dependent to the point where they will literally kill themselves when faced with the prospect of being without the other, and Rory is shown to be continually paranoid Amy will abandon him, which I can have sympathy with to a point, since I myself actually struggle with that a little due to past traumas and sometimes need reassurance from my partner, which luckily she is very understanding about. But again, communication is the key there. Something which Amy and Rory would prove so pathetically inadequate at they won't even have the 2-minute conversation which will save their marriage. And of course, let's not forget how this all started, because Amy cheated on Rory. Yeah, I might have said there's mitigating circumstances to that, but it still doesn't make it okay. I'm Midnight, and I just lost my train of thought.